Ah, that's sweet music. That's sweet music. Gets us bopping here. Welcome. Glad to see you again. We are just having a great time with the show, Activate Worcester. It's about ideas and it's about getting people active. And this is a very, very exciting time of the year for everybody. And we happen to have a really, really I keep saying that. We always seem to have special guests.
We only know special people.
We only have special people. But this particular guest, and I'm not going to take Sandy's thunder away from this one, is an individual that we've had a good, long relationship with. And I think you're going to be very proud to meet her if you don't already know her, if she hasn't banged on your door. And who is it that we have tonight, Sandy?
Well, probably someone that doesn't really need much of an introduction, but...
so we won't give her one.
but I'll give a little introduction anyway. Donna Calorio has been on the school committee for about a year now, so we thought we would ask her to stop in and give us a one-year update. A little background on Donna. She has a bachelor's in economics and a master's in counseling. She's an instructor at Quinn Sigeman, and of course she's on the school committee. So without much further ado, I think we'll just get kicked off here, because like I said, Donna's is a lifelong Worcester native and has gone to school here, and all her kids have gone to school here, so I think she's fairly well known.
Well, that was the Donna Calorio story, and I have to tell you that I've known Donna for several years, and I know what a decision it was for her to try to go against 6 well-entrenched incumbents on the school committee as a rookie, as a newcomer, with literally no political backing, not lots of money behind her. And in a way, I see her as being analogous to a Scott Brown. When Scott decided to run and do his thing, underfunded, didn't have a big political machine behind him, but what he did have was a great message and a tremendous amount of drive. And that's exactly what Donna has. And I can't tell you how many times she and I worked together, banging on doors and so on and so forth. And she earned every vote that she received, even through the horror of the recount, where first she won, then she lost, and then she won again. And it's been a heck of a hard road. And we all have a sense of real special pride to welcome you to Activate Worcester, Donna. Glad to have you.
Thank you, Ron. Thank you, Sandy. Oh, I'm really honored to be here. And thank you. You know, I think of my journey as being very similar to Scott's, because I started off volunteering at his office back when he was running in the primary, and nobody really knew about him, and we would call people up and no one knew who the heck he was. And I said, oh wow, this is really, you know, I don't think he's got a chance. You know, no one knew him, and we just kept pounding the doors and making the phone calls. And finally, when he did rise to the occasion and win the election, I said to myself, wow, you know what, hard work can pay off. And so a year later, I decided to run for school committee. And it has been really very interesting, a lot of fun, a lot of fun. I'm having a lot of fun with it, and I'm learning a tremendous amount.
Why did you run for school committee as opposed to something else?
Well, I thought my background being an educator, I've been at Quinn Sigeman Community College for 22 years. I've taught in the sociology and in the psychology department, and I know a lot about education. I've been involved with my kids' education. I've been teaching kids for 22 years, and I thought this would be a natural step, a natural progression into understanding more of the policy issues or behind the scenes, what's involved with getting certain things passed.
One of the other elements that Donna did not share with you just now is that she also has a pretty good business background. Her family's been in business for many, many years, and she was actively involved, and probably still is to some degree, with her company. And she really ran, in addition to being someone who understands and relates to the whole educational process, also ran on, I guess at that time we were calling it a fiscal conservatism policy, or fiscal sanity, which is really what it boils down to. How has that worked out so far?
Well, I have to say, one of the interesting things I realize is that a lot of people ask me, how do they make their tax dollars stretch? I mean, where do they get the most bang for their buck for the schools? And my answer, it will play right into what you said, is my answer is elect a fiscal conservative person to a municipal office like the school committee, because money has to be allocated. You know, sometimes we don't have a choice of how much money we receive, but in our budget, which is $300 million for 24,000 children, we have discretionary about 15% of that money to allocate to programs. So if you have somebody in there that's fiscally conservative, that's watching out, that their focus is the children and not the administration or the union or whatever, you get someone that is really much more accountable. Now, I'll give you one example. We had, during our budget season, it's a season where we look at the budget and we can like move money around. As a school committee member, we have to get the votes, so we have to get 4 votes in order to move anything. So someone can bring up an idea, but it has to be voted on. And one of the things that right before budget season happened was, which became a very disturbing thing for me, is I found out through self-discovery and looking into the budget that the school department had allocated 290 cell phones. 290 cell phones. Those are phones that administration, many other people had cell phones. Now, I was given a cell phone when I first came on board, and I didn't even think about it. I was like, okay, well, if they need to get in contact me, that's okay, that's cool. So once I started to dig, I realized that we had that many cell phones. It really disturbed me because, number one, I thought that the people receiving the cell phones could, in fact, pay for their own cell phones, and that we could use that money and allocate that money back into the classrooms. And I wanted to put that money towards tutors, instructional assistants, people that had direct contact with actually the kids. That's my goal. My focus is the kids. My focus is not the administration, it's not the union, it's the kids. How do the kids get the best quality education possible for the city of Worcester? So I did bring it up, and it didn't have any movement because nobody else was really interested in taking that to the next step. So in a way, you make people aware of things, and you can fight for things, but you still need, in the last possible thing is you need the votes. You need the votes on the floor.
Is there much of an appetite amongst your peers to look at things from a financial perspective?
Well, that's a good question. I think we have a very diverse group and very diverse background of school committee members right now. So each one brings something to the table. We have 2 fairly new committee members that have been there within just, I think, 4 years now. And we have others that have been there up to almost 24 years. I think the most senior person of our school committee has been there. So we have an array. We have different people that contribute different things. To get back to your question, there has been times that we do get something passed, and it is fiscal. During budget season, we could not move any money. We did not. We had myself and 2 other members that were willing to vote, and I think we voted on I would say up to 5 different issues that we want to either transfer money in and out of, or even eliminate a job. I wanted to zero out a job. We wanted to zero out a program, a principal mentoring program. One of the committee members felt that principals, if they're getting paid $130,000 a year and they're very highly qualified, why do they need an additional mentoring program? And it wasn't big money, but it was the principle behind it. And could we have used it for more supplies? Could we use it for maybe one more IA? Of course we could. And then there were other programs. There was another a position that I thought was kind of a useless position. So I questioned it. I got 2 votes on that. I didn't get it passed, though, because I needed 4 to get it passed.
So who constructs the budget in the first place?
The budget
because apparently there's something that
the budget is done by the administration and presented to us during a 2-day budget session. Now, and so we go through it and we bring up where we want to move money. But in order to move the money, you have to have the 4 votes to move it. So I remember, I think at one point, Brian was willing to move $200,000 out of administration and into, we were going to put it into a fund that we wanted to eventually allocate towards, we were suggesting tutors. Tutors are very, very cost efficient employee in our system. I don't know if you're aware of it, but tutors run about $20,000 a year. They have to be certified, so they're ex-teachers or they're people that want to see if they like teaching. You know, let me try it first. No benefits, and and they do phenomenal work, and they're in the classroom, so we're not expanding or have to build more classrooms. What we're doing is we're just breaking down the ratio. So I wanted to, I asked Brian, if, you know, are you willing to put this to tutors? Absolutely. We didn't get the votes. We got 3. We needed 4.
Amazing.
So, yes. So Brian brought up that. Diana brought up to eliminate the mentoring. I questioned the cell phone. I wanted to eliminate a position that I thought head of coordinator of volunteers, which I felt we could probably use that woman someplace else where she could be much more beneficial and save the money, because we have openings in other areas of administration. So I was looking at the whole package, and how do we get more tutors in the classroom? How do we get the ratio down? How do we support our kids in the best without spending crazy money on you know, administration? So we get, that's one thing. The other thing that's interesting in the fiscal end of things is that, and I think Sandy and I, we've talked about this, and probably Ron and I, we've talked about it, is that a lot of things get not grandfathered in, get proposed through grant money. We accept a grant, then the grant says, oh, here's your carrot, you get $500,000 on this grant.
The grants come from?
From not the fairy, not the magical money fairy. Sandy, I know you were thinking that.
The grant unicorns,
yes. The grant unicorns. No, grants, of course, come from federal government or state government. It depends on what the grants are, who writes the grants, you know, if it's written by administration or if it's written by a school. Sometimes schools will get small grants. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about huge grants. So we get these grants, we sign into them, we vote on them, because it's, you know, it's money. That's it. We got it. And then we are then put on additional supplementary, you know, employees, teachers, and then the grant expires. Oh, now what do? Do you think you get rid of the program? Do you think you get rid of the teachers? Do you think you get rid of the services, the wraparound services? No, you don't. You then roll it into
sucker play.
Roll it into the budget. So what we have done, and it's only been one other member and myself, we had some money coming down for our level 4 school, and herself, we both voted against it. We're only 2 out of 7. So it didn't go anywhere, but we wanted to make it known that we could still turn around the school, a level 4 school, without the federal money, and we could, in fact, have the kids get used to, this is what you're going to get. Let's get used to it now, because in 4 years you're not going to have these support systems. So there are a lot of different ways that we can become fiscally conservative. And
so the grants can tend to amount to an unfunded liability in the future.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
That's craziness.
It's craziness. So what you have to do what you have to do is, first of all, to become aware of what's happening, you have to actually read your agenda, and you have to do your research on your agenda. So you talk about fiscal conservative people. We do have them, and there are people that do read the agenda and do go through it and do question it. And sometimes our meetings, if you watch it on the...
It's on pay-per-view, isn't it?
No, it's on free TV. But anyways, if you watch our school committee meetings, sometimes they tend to be very long. But I said to somebody, I turned to someone that made a comment how long our meetings were. I said, well, look at who's speaking, and this shows most of the time that they're really interested in the system. Not that, you know, sometimes people are grandstanding, but it's mostly they're interested in the system. They're interested in making this a better educational system. So that's one of the things, the key things is during our budget time.
Now, as I remember, when you were running, there were certain things, promises, objectives that you had. One of them, very clearly, was to be a very, very strong advocate for fiscal sanity. take a look at, because it's 300 million plus, that's almost 2/3 of the city's budget. And the sense was it just kind of drifted somewhere and it happened. And what you wanted to do is put some controls on it, which I thought was a heck of an idea. Second thing that I know you talked about was visiting every one of these roughly 50 schools, and you wanted to do it in 44, and you wanted to do it all within the first 6 months or a year. And I think you achieved that in 3 months. I don't know how you did that, but that was kind of an impressive achievement as well.
In 90 days, in the first 90 days, I visited all 44 schools. I started to visit, we have a couple alternative schools. I have yet to finish those up. They're a little bit different in security ways and getting in to see the program. They really need to be there, where the other schools, it's a little bit easier if there's an assistant principal around. I was at all 44 schools, and originally it was really interesting because I felt, well, you know what, I don't want to impose on the principals. I just want to say, could I spend 15 minutes of your time? Could you sit down and just tell me briefly some of the good things that are happening in your school, maybe some of the struggles, maybe, what's the communication like with school committee, et cetera, et cetera. And I found out that I was booking, every hour I was booking a school at one point. And the meetings were sometimes running I was at South High for almost 3 hours.
Wow.
And why? Because Maureen at South High was proud of some of the programs and some of the things that she's done, some of the achievements with some of the kids. And she wanted to show me the achievements. She was delighted to have a school committee member there on the premise looking at what they're doing. Because sometimes if you sit in the chambers and you take votes, you don't have a realistic view of what does that school look like? Is it an old school? Is it a new school?
Sure.
Is there water dripping into the classrooms? What are the conditions? What's the the whole culture of the school? Are the kids happy, or is it out of control? You don't know that till you walk in those doors. So I thought it was very important, being the first time on school committee, to visit all 44 schools, which I did in the first 90 days, which I'm very proud of. And I think I've built up some very nice relationships. I send emails to the principals when I have a question. I know who I'm talking to. I have a nice relationship. So it did, yeah.
Is this something you'll follow up and maybe not hit them in the next 90 days or whatever? Do you have a plan to go out and hit a number of these on an ongoing basis?
Well, what I found, Ron, is really interesting is after I've been there the first time, I would then get emails. You want to come to our concert? Do you want to do this? Do you want to do that? I just ran into Maureen South High. She goes, oh, we just did a whole blah, blah, blah. I can't even remember because we weren't allowed. And I said, Maureen, I'll be up in the next month. A lot of times there's other things to celebrate at the schools, so it's always nice, and they always have me on a list. I went back and did Dr. Seuss Day last year. I think at 2 of the schools I did readings, and they felt very comfortable inviting me because they knew me then.
So you are being well received.
Oh, very well received. I have to tell you, none of the principals, not one, have treated me anything but the best. They are very delighted and happy because they know when I'm making a decision about their school.
They have input.
They have input. Well, plus I've been there. It's not like I'm making a decision based in some kind of fantasy that I've actually had. I'm a very hands-on person. I like to see things. I'm visual.
Well, the third thing that I remember in your initial campaign, you wanted to somehow be a catalyst in getting a greater degree of parent involvement with the students. How is that going at this point?
Well, that is ongoing conversation.
Yeah.
No, it's ongoing conversation, Ron, and it's really become very difficult. But I have to say this can lead right into almost like, and I know at the end you're going to ask me how people can be active, but people really need to visit their school. They need to have a relationship with their principal. They need to turn on the school committee, I know, once in a while and see what are some of the issues. Look at the agenda. Does it apply to them? And that is one of the things. We also have, the administration is very pro-parent involvement, and they have done, I feel, a good job at picking principals and assigning principals that will go out and work within the community. And I think that's really one of the most important things.
Well, is there any active parent-teacher association?
Yes.
So,
There's a CPAC group, there's a parent-teacher, there's many different groups within the schools. Some schools much more active than others. Of course, when we wanted to cut, we didn't, I'm just saying, the administration was going to cut, I think it was 2 teachers at Flag Street. I saw we had all of Flag Street there, pretty much, in protesting of those 2 teachers. Now, we haven't, so I kept saying, I'm really glad to see you guys here. I hope you come more often. Be active. So there are some schools that are quite active in their parent-student.
Do you see a direct correlation between parent involvement and student performance?
I don't have any data on that, but I would assume yes. I would assume that the students that perform better are really the ones that have the parent support. And I can give you another example of that. We are right now, we're in the process of, the mayor has set up a committee to look into the possibility of an exam school in the city of Worcester. And that's a school or an IB program, which is an International Baccalaureate program. And those 2 programs are for the gifted students. So this is a great opportunity for parents who are very active in their child's education to come out and speak and get their voices heard on this issue. And we've had open forums, public forums, and we're getting an okay response. I'd like to see more people coming to it.
there's more meetings.
What?
More meetings.
There's 2 more meetings. We're holding them in each quadrant at each college. So we have one coming up on, I can tell you right now, the 22nd of October on Monday at Worcester State College at the Student Center Blue Room at 7 o'clock. And we have one on Monday, October 29th at Clark University at Higgins University Center Grace Conference Room. And if that's something you can't write down that fast, you can always go and contact me directly, or if you go to the Worcester Public School website, right there on the links, you just scroll right down on that main page. On the links, there is a whole section that it says about the exam school, and you can click on that and it'll show you the dates and where they are. Or you can also, contact me at Colorio D.
So do any of the other school districts in Massachusetts have exam schools? Or would
Yes, Boston has one. Springfield has one. We were in Boston at the O'Brien School, I think it was last week. It was very interesting, very fascinating. And
What do you see the chances of this being implemented in Worcester, and reasonable time frame? When do you think that might happen?
Well, this is the timeline. We were charged to do the research this summer, which we have pretty much accomplished. There's not a lot of research on exam schools because they've been kind of under the wire, to be honest with you. They've existed in the country for some of them since the 1800s, and they just kind of go along. Some of them have a lot of funding, private funding, so they really don't have really a lot of data on them, even though they are public schools. So we've done the research. I'm sorry. Now we have the 4 forums to find out from anybody. What are your feelings? What do you think? You don't have to have data to come to the meeting. You just have to have a viewpoint and share that viewpoint. And some people don't have kids in the school, but they're wondering, what will this do to the city of Worcester? Will it add to the city? Will it not add to the city? And et cetera, et cetera. So
concerned citizens.
Concerned citizens.
So what's the experience been in Boston and Springfield?
Well, in Boston, from what we have looked at and from what the school has, when we had our interview there, it was very positive. It was very positive. We talked to the administrative board. We went to the classrooms. They really felt that these kids were getting a much better education. And when we actually talked to certain students, we were in an engineering class, and we got to talk to one kid. It was very interesting. He entered the exam school just because his teacher said, take the test. He got in to the exam school, and they said, we want you to apply to MIT. And he went home, and the parents said, we've never heard that school. No way.
MIT?
Listen,
What's
MIT. What is MIT? I have to tell you, they were Albanians. Yeah, so it's kind of funny because the kid was Albanian, so I had a lot of ha-has on that. But anyways, so he went to MIT, and he did phenomenally well. And the kid came back and he says, I would not be where I am today if it wasn't for the exam school.
That's great.
Would not be here. In the administration, this one of the administrators there say, we have a moral obligation to educate the gifted. We have a moral obligation. Mm-hmm. And we do have a lot of gifted students in Worcester that would love to have a much more tougher, curriculum than they have now.
Well, something to strive for.
Something to strive for.
And one of the other things, too, that you don't want to do is lose these students to an out-of-town school, which can happen.
Yes.
So I know that that's another issue. I guess the last question that I have for you, this has been obviously quite a ride for you, getting onto the school committee. Based on your experience with the committee itself, what's been the most surprising experience that you've had so far?
I think twofold in the surprising end of it. One is actually how a municipality works. How do you get things passed? How do you work on to get something accomplished? In the private industry, it's much quicker. You bring it to whatever your department head, you guys, you brainstorm, you look at some numbers,
make a
decision, feasibility,
done.
Done deal. Poof, poof. Here it goes, in front of the committee, it gets voted on, it goes to a standing committee, it gets discussed if the chair of the standing committee even wants to bring it up again, and it just drags on and on and on. So I think that was one of the most surprising things for me, and also to the how diverse our community really is, and how many kids are really struggling out there in our community.
I'll bet. What's next for Donna?
What I'm doing next? Nothing yet. I mean, I'm here.
Re-election?
Re-election on the school committee, absolutely. I'm really enjoying, what's happening and all the things that's going.
We have about 15 seconds left. What should the viewers be doing?
The viewers should definitely be looking at your school committee, looking at who you have elected. Are they accountable for your kids, for the community? And also, too, is please contact your school committee members. Ask them questions. Send them emails. Go to school committee meetings. Go to your school. Get active in your community.
And get involved.
Get involved.
Get involved.
Absolutely.
Donna, great having you on. We'll look forward to seeing you again next week. We'll have another great show. Thanks again for watching. And Donna, congratulations.
Thank you, John.